So here we have graphed x minus 1 all raised to the power of 2. And we can tell that since we have x minus 1 raised to the power of 2, that's our function, right? We could have said y is equal to that, or f of x is equal to that. F of x and y are the same thing, right? So we could have typed it in this way inside of Desmos, and we would have the same graph. And notice that if x minus 1 is a factor, then positive 1 has to be a 0. And there it is there. If you focus on that 0, does this graph bounce or slice at that point? Well, let's follow the graph as it comes in from the left. So we would come down this way from the left, and notice that when we hit this 0, we actually touch or bounce right back in the opposite direction. And we should know that from looking at this exponent here outside parentheses. Notice that this is an even exponent, and that goes back to that saying I told you earlier, don't you even touch me. So if you have an even exponent, it just touches the graph at that point and then bounces in the opposite direction. What if we have, let's say, a different value? Let's type in something totally different and see if we can determine some information about the graph. So I decided to multiply by, let's say, x plus 4. Well, this time we have an odd function. This is a third degree function. Let me zoom out here. And how would I know that this is a third degree function, first of all? Well, I have an understood power of 1 here, and I have a power of 2 here, and 2 plus 1 is 3. So that's an odd number, so I have an odd function. And notice that the leading coefficient here is positive 1, and this is a positive 1, and a positive times a positive would be a positive if I multiplied all of this together. So not only is it odd, it is positive or increasing, which means it starts low and it ends high, which is what this one does. So this is an odd function. It is a positive function. And notice that we still have, when x is equal to 1, since this is an even exponent here, we have a touch or a bounce at 1. So it goes down, it hits at 1 and bounces back up. But if you look at x is equal to negative 4, since x plus 4 is a factor, negative 4 is a 0, which is here. But notice that the multiplicity is odd, right? There's an understood 1 there, and 1 is an odd number. And that means that the graph, as it goes from left to right, comes up and slices through x is equal to negative 4. So again, if you have an even exponent, it's a touch or a bounce. But if it's an odd exponent, you would have a slice. Let's look at one more. Suppose I change the function to something like this. Let's see, I'm going to say negative x. Okay, this is interesting. I still have a lot of the same qualities I had before, right? I still have an even exponent here, which means 1 being a 0 has a bounce at 1. So if we look at 1 here, let me change this to a different color, something we can actually see. If I look at 1 here, notice that I have a bounce at 1, right? When x is 1, it comes up and bounces back down. And we also have a 0 at negative 4 still. But since there's an odd multiplicity at negative 4, this thing just slices right through the x-axis, right? We have a slice. And then if you look at this factor, that 0 is at 0. And since this has an odd multiplicity, it has a slice at 0. So if you look at the graph, notice it slices right through at that 0 value.